let's start with the news of the last 24 hours that Jaden Daniels is going to play. I know this was something you had a strong feeling about, and I believe are pleased with the outcome.
Yes, quite pleased with the outcome. I know BMitch is in the same world I am, where you got to get your guys out on the field and they got to play. And, it's easy enough to have them out there and not put them in harm's way, but there's a value to a guy who hasn't played a football game in, whatever it's been, 6-7 months to going through the pregame rotations, getting used to the machinations of what the coaching staff wants from him pregame, how they're going to go about, any pregame meetings and talks and stuff like that, all the way up into, getting into the game and getting used to the feel of being on an NFL field. It's an important thing for me, for rookies to get out there and not have those first regular season games be treated like preseason games.
How you feel they should work him though? Like, what type of plays you want to see?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I like the way that the old school NFL did when there were 4 preseason games, where your main starters would get a series in the first preseason game, a quarter in the second preseason game, and then a half in the third preseason game, or whatever it is that you want to get them in that third one. Now that there's a 2-week break between the final preseason game and the first regular season game, to me, I think that's the perfect way to get those guys used to it. They have 2 weeks to get their bodies back right for the start of the regular season. But that break can be a real killer. And you see teams that come out slow, like the Commanders have pretty much every year for the past decade or so at the beginning of the season. So get them a little work in the preseason and get them ready to go at day one.
The difference, though, in like that model of a little bit in the first, a bunch in the second, and then maybe some in the third, it was also like when they had 4 games, they had a lot more runway to judge kind of fringe roster players. And I think a lot of that has shrunk now without that 4th game. And that's why I think nobody plays in that 3rd game. So you actually get a good look at, who your 35 to 50 roster guys are. I got zero problem with Jayden playing. I think it's really good. It's kind of remarkable that like the buzz, for lack of a better word, seems a little quieter for this Commanders training camp than a lot of them. I think it's really good that this dude will be out there playing. Imagine he hits a 60-yard bomb to Terry McLaurin. The hype rocket will go to the moon.
I will take it.
But, dude, when Theismann said, whenever that was, last month, 2 months ago even, that he shouldn't play because who knows what the line will look like. What the line has looked like of late is pretty different than what we expect it to look like week 1. Get us up to speed on Wiley. Sam Cosmi wasn't out there the other day. Now, we didn't get any. We were all told it wasn't serious. But there's a lot of moving parts on that offensive line.
Yeah, I would say disjointed is probably a good way to describe it at the moment. Andrew Wiley has missed, I think, 5 straight practices now of 11 on 11 drills. And I think all we've been told is quote unquote tightness, which is, a little tough to wrap your head around what that actual injury is. He has done a little bit of individual drills, and he goes in when they do the field goal kicking drills. So I don't really have a good feel for what's happening there, but I do hope or think that it probably opened up this coaching staff's eyes a little bit more to the lack of depth that they have at tackle, because the fact that Wiley was out forced Trent Scott into the starting role at right tackle, and he was kind of, I would say, uneven. And then with Sam Cosmi missing a practice, all of a sudden, they were playing around with Michael Dieter and Chris Paul and some other guys over there at guard, and then ultimately started playing with the center position a little bit. I think there's certainly a value to what Dan Quinn has talked about with getting everybody reps together. But if this Wiley thing, whether it's poor play or injury, is a bigger issue, it really ends up putting a lot of pressure on the team to have Brandon Coleman ready to go at left tackle, because ultimately, I think if that's the case, you're going to have Cornelius Lucas probably start at right tackle, and then have Brandon Coleman at left, and it's a lot of pressure on a rookie 3rd rounder.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Wiley thing is starting to linger long enough that we'd love a real explanation. I don't know that it's coming. If we get to the Meadowlands next Saturday, and it is, say you get Coleman, Allegretti, Biotish, Cosme, Lucas, you're cool, but what if that right side is Trent Scott and Dieter or something? You know what I mean? Like, we know that the Jets get after the quarterback. We also know that Cliff could probably design this thing so that there's not a lot of opportunity for Jayden to get hit, but is there a cutoff point where you're like, all right, man, I don't think he should be out there?
I really don't think so. I think that, you have veteran guys both there with Dieter and Trent Scott, who have been NFL players. They know that they're not kind of rookies being thrown out on an island there. And I do think, especially for that first game, you can design it easily enough to have two quick handoffs and a quick pass and get them out of there. At least just have them get under center, look at a different defense, get a feel for what 1 o'clock on a Sunday will feel like later in the year. I certainly am concerned about the depth of the O-line as a whole, but I really don't think, unless there's a major injury unless Coleman or Cornelius Lucas also can't go for that game on Saturday, there's no reason not to play him.
Yeah. Have you all heard anything I haven't about veteran days off and things of that nature? Because we know we heard it every day with Ron. So if that could be something that they're doing and not voicing it.
Sure.
It's certainly possible, but the Andrew Wiley thing's been going on since last Friday. I mean, we're over a week now of practices where we've been waiting for him to get back out there in the 11s. Sam Cosme's have been a veteran day off, possibly. Saturday was a walkthrough. Sunday was a practice day. Today, Monday, is an off day for them. It seems unlikely that there was just a planned veteran off day in between two light days. But Ron loves his veteran days. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, the Wiley thing, I think, is stretching a little too long to be a veterans off day. I do think, they were pretty clear that guys like Ertz and Wagner and probably Eckler, they're really going to manage their workload just to keep, the focus needs to be on Tampa and not the Jets. Mm-hmm. It's going to be fascinating to see, because when Jayden comes out, are you with me? B, I want to start with you. Like, when Jayden comes out, do you need to see any more from Terry or B-Rob or Eckler or those guys? Because I think it'll be a pretty wholesale change once Jayden's done.
I don't think you need to see it, but, I think those guys getting their work is probably more important than Jayden actually going out there being put in harm's way. You know what I mean? So if they go just a little bit with Mariota, because if something were to happen to Jayden, Mariota's in there. So he should get a little work with him as well. Now, I don't think they need to see anything from the other two quarterbacks. Like Terry and them don't need to work with the other two.
Yeah. It's interesting. I tend to agree with you. Go ahead, Mitch.
I was just going to say, we've lived with this competition charade for the past, for the first couple of weeks of camp. I would think that Dan and Cliff would probably have Mariota out there with some other starters, at least for a little bit, and let him get a little bit of run there, because they've been giving him enough number one reps, as we've been going through camp. So I would expect it.
It'll be interesting to watch that unfold. I think Mariota had a pretty rough start to camp, but I think he's shown more the last few days. I think Mariota's a better quarterback once the run game kind of gets installed, because unlike Jayden, Mariota's still, whatever he is, 8-9 years into the league, is still a run-first quarterback. And Jayden, despite what I think is going to be more running than people are expecting, is such a clear pass-first pocket guy. But to me, and Mitch, you and I kind of disagree on this, I have started to see why Mariota's the right backup. Everybody points to the Netflix show from a couple of years ago when he kind of bailed on Atlanta. We only saw one side of that. Atlanta gets the final approval of how it looks. I think if I'm Marcus Mariota, and I believe that team was still in the playoff hunt, and I think I had been given some level of maybe not guarantee, but assurance that you're the starting quarterback no matter what happens, and then you bench me for Desmond Ridder, who is not an NFL passer, I think I'd be pretty pissed too. But that said, I think the Netflix show is given a really negative perception to Mariota. Whereas now that I've talked to him, I've talked to coaches with him, I've talked to people that were in Philly last year, I think he's the perfect guy for this situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a perfect backup for this situation as a backup. What I've seen from Marcus Mariota hasn't given me any indication that if there's a need for a long-term backup, that he's the best option out there. Now, none of the other quarterbacks in camp outside of the Jaden Daniels group have shown me that they necessarily deserve to be a long-term starter either. I think like a lot of other positions, they lack depth at quarterback as well. But I do think Mariota's a great player and person to be in that role in how they can help Jayden get accustomed to the NFL and work through, first year issues and seeing defenses make adjustments to him for the first time and all the different things that kind of he'll see through his first NFL season.
Yeah, Marcus, I mean, I just hope we don't have to see a backup, to be honest with you. But the ultimate thing is, if Jayden starts handling this business after a year or so, then you can start not necessarily worrying about that quarterback. Because his personality, to me, is one that you don't need to have the veteran guy around all the time, because he's not that guy who's the me guy.
Talking to.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, he was kind of got asked about this yesterday. Clearly, Jayden and Hartman seem to be like buddies. I think if cuts were today, I think Hartman's a practice squad guy, and you keep Driscoll. Driscoll has played in the NFL. The results haven't been great, but I don't know that Hartman is ready for that. When you play 5 years and start at Notre Dame for at least a season, if not two, and then go undrafted, like you started at Notre Dame for a year, dude. Like the NFL scouts have seen you, and
they know what you're about,
right? But I mean, he seems like a great guy.
Good looking.
Yeah, he's a heartthrob. The ladies love him. Like you could see over time, this room, the quarterback room, develop where it's just Jayden's room, and he doesn't necessarily need a veteran. I think Mariota's good in that role, and I think perhaps more importantly for this season, if something happens, Mariota can run the same offense. He's not going to be nearly the passer Jayden is. I argue he's about half the passer Jayden is. But at least you don't have to flip things upside down on a roster that got completely flipped upside down.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with that. I mean, being able to run the same offense is certainly a big pro to having Marcus here, and we see it in camp. I mean, he's just so quick to tuck the ball in passing plays that it makes me wonder how he can be successful running, during the course of an NFL game. But like B said, hopefully we don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, for sure. Specifically with the Jets, is there anything you're looking, any matchups you want to see, or for me, I think we got a whole lot of questions about Washington's secondary, and I think Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson are going to test it pretty damn quick.
I mean, I think the same on the other side of the ball. I think this is the most important practice that Brandon Coleman's going to have to date. He's been going against the Commanders DNs, and they certainly present one challenge, but the Jets have a heck of a pass rush, and I think across the board, it'll be good for this Commanders O-line to start seeing some of these guys. And then also everyone on Sauce Gardner. I want to see Terry and Jahan and maybe Luke McCaffrey a little bit, just get some reps with them and see what, get used to what an elite NFL cornerback looks like. And obviously for Jayden and Mariota as well, kind of throwing against guys of that nature. I think pretty much across the board, there are a lot of places that are going to get a much better test with the Jets than they do with their counterparts on the Commanders.
I had a conversation with someone yesterday, and it was like saying that they wanted to get involved with the kickoff return thing. Who do you see being the lead guy with that?
It's interesting. I mean, I guess right now it's hard to say it's not maybe Mikey Sainer still, who gets a bunch of those first kickoff returns.
It's crazy. Is they work on punt all the time, and we see them work on punt all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of seems like they're keeping kickoff to when the media is not there.
Because it seems like it, because the person that talked to me I'm not gonna say it because I don't know if he wanted it to be said, but doesn't seem like I've ever seen him back there at all. But he said he's looking forward to it.
Well,
I've been curious about Chris
Rodriguez.
I thought Rodriguez might be a good fit there. We haven't seen him for
I think he could definitely be a good fit.
Sorry, Mitch, I cut you off there.
No, that's exactly where I was going with it. The kick return stuff, it feels like running backs are going to be an important piece of that return game because it's almost like a running play every time where, you're trying to hit a hole. And then on kickoff, I think linebackers are going to be super important because guys who are used to kind of, reading a defensive player in front of them, getting rid of him and going and getting the kicker. So, we talked a lot about Jaden Davis and, his role at defensive end and rushing the quarterback. I think he could really make a name for himself on specials, particularly in kickoff.